Welcome to Storyteller, where I try and find the wildest story I can each week, and Teresa hears it all for the first time. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Teresa.
Do I have a story for you?
Ooh. Before we get started, I just want to say that we need to leave on a cliffhanger a lot more often. Because thank you guys, but it seems like
we have had, it is popping off this week.
Yes. And I think it's just because of that cliffhanger. I
think it definitely helped.
Yeah.
So.
People message me about it.
Yes.
Me about it. I'm like, I am with you guys. I am on the same cliff as you.
I do not know.
Yes. So with that being said, Courtney, let's dive on in.
Welcome back, everyone. We are on part 2 of the Bitter Blood murders. And just to recap, in part 1, we learned about the Lynch family, primarily focusing on Dolores Lynch, who was married to Chuck, and they had 2 kids together, a son, TJ, and a daughter, Janie. We learned also that some women, no matter how much they hate their husbands, will just not divorce a motherfucker and stick around. Stop it. And stick around to make his life a living hell. Dolores was awful to Chuck.
She was horrible.
She was so freaking mean. That was crazy work, the way that she treated him. I still, every time I read this story or anything, I'm always... Girl had so much energy. I would never have that kind of energy.
All I know is all last week I kept going, moist pearl. And I chuckled to myself.
It's so rough. Bullied by Dolores until his death. Chuck at least never, he left this earth before all the murdering started. So
that's true.
Silver lining? I don't know. And the first set of murders is where we ended. That part of the story with the shocking deaths of Dolores and Janie, who were gunned down. Dolores outside their sprawling estate in Oldham County, Kentucky, and Janie inside the house. And it definitely seems like Janie was not, I don't think she was part of it. I think they weren't hoping Janie would be
just
there
wrong
or didn't
place,
know.
Time type of deal.
Mm-hmm, yeah, because I was reading a different source this week, and that source was very much like she must have been in the kitchen and popped her head out of the sliding glass doors in the back to be like, what was that sound? And now she has to, be eliminated because she saw who was doing it. So, and they chased her through the entire house to get her. Yeah, she had rollers in her hair, and they shot through one of the rollers, and it went into her head. Oh my God. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at some of the pictures that I put on social media, but Janie is so pretty. She is so, and she's 40 years old when she's murdered. She has become a career, she just kept going back to school. She couldn't figure out what she wanted to do. So she went for teaching, then speech pathology, and then finally she had just finished dental school. Okay. So she was 40 years old, and she looked like 22. She was keeping it tight.
I know what her face cream was.
I know, girl. So now we are stepping away from the Lynch murders in Kentucky and heading back in time to North Carolina to learn about another family, the Sharps. Born in Rockingham County, North Carolina in 1877, James Merritt Sharp was determined to get an education and make sure others could get one too. As a child, James Merritt Sharp attended a school in a one-room log schoolhouse, and he was determined as a teenager to broaden his education. He, on his own motion, attended Whitsett Institute in Whitsett, North Carolina. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. With the money he earned from raising tobacco. So he was super focused on getting an education, even though it wasn't the norm to go around this time. Yeah. By the age of 18, he was teaching school. And in 1900, Mr. Sharp established his very own institute named the Sharp Institute. Really went creative with that. A cool educational day and boarding school. Opening in October 1900 with 50 students, the enrollment climbed to 225 by 1906. Oh, wow. Yeah. So, and this Rockingham County is right over the border from our place in... it's on the way to Greensboro. Okay. And so it's very rural. It's just that area that we're in Virginia. So
it's kind of like a public kind of school. private deal, or do people have to?
I don't know that they had to pay exactly, but then again, I don't know how he was funding it if they weren't. Okay. So I don't know for sure. I never saw anything on how that was being managed. So, known by then as one of the best preparatory institutions in Central and Northwest North Carolina, the school burned down in 1907, ending James Merritt Sharp's career as Professor Sharp, as he was known affectionately by the Institute alumni. The fire may have ended the Institute, but Mr. Sharp was leaving the endeavor with something even better, a beautiful wife. James Sharp had married Annie Britt Blackwell, who had been a teacher at the Institute the year prior. Their first child, a daughter named Susie, was born in 1907. Even before the fire and the end of his career as a professor, James Sharp had taken an interest in law. In 1908, he passed the Supreme Court's bar examination after studying under the famous Wake Forest Law School Dean N.Y. Gully. So he didn't even go to law school. He just read it on his own and then kind of had almost like a mentor, and that was good enough back then. So
I feel like it should be good enough now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly,
I know. Yeah. There's some people that are lawyers that I'm like, you passed the bar exam.
I found a couple of them.
Yeah. So he began his 44-year practice of the law, and 38 of those years would be spent in Reidsville, North Carolina, where he and Annie Britt would go on to have 10 children, although only 7 would survive into adulthood. James and Annie Britt's family thrived after the move to Reidsville, as did Mr. Sharp's law practice. Tragedy struck, though, as it always seems to do when things are going well, when Annie Britt decided it was time to switch the children, the newest being twin boys, John and Jim, born in 1921, to dairy milk from the raw milk they had got from their own Jersey cow. The decision would prove catastrophic.
So they went from non-pasteurized milk to pasteurized milk and something.
Yep. Isn't that wild?
That
I had to really research that because I was like, that is not making sense.
You would think that'd be the other way around. We went from pasteurized milk to raw milk.
Yeah. Apparently, the pasteurization was not right. The twins, along with their older sister Florence, had just been recovering from whooping cough when they all became terribly ill from colitis from tainted milk. Jim died first. John next, a month before what would have been his and his twin brother's second birthday.
Dang.
Yeah. Florence she did live, but she had to learn how to walk and talk again, and she was 4.
What?
Yeah. So bad. I had no idea.
Like, what do you think about stuff like that? Like, how far we've come with medicine, though?
Yeah.
I mean, like, now you just like take a pill for colitis.
Right. Yes.
Like people like stop right. It basically paralyzed people. And
yes.
It sounds like she had a stroke.
Yeah. So and she was 4. She was like right before she was going to go into school and everything. Yeah. So Annie Britt, knowing her decision to switch the milk sources, fell into a pit of despair. She wore black. She stared into the distance. She did not speak. Her remaining children, worried and scared of how she was acting, snuck around her as if they were ghosts in their own home. Like, she was just despondent. After weeks without any change in Annie Britt, James started to worry she'd never crawl out of her grief. But that changed when Matilda Purcell, a black woman hired to come in and help with the washing each week, solved the problem.
I love the name Matilda.
I know. And she's called Matilde. Well, Annie Britt was in her stupor. Matilde, as she was called by the family, was hired on extra to help with the cooking as well as the washing. One day, Matilde said, "Mrs. Sharp, it ain't right for you to sit here and grieve like this." Matilde told her, "And if you don't stop, the Lord will punish you and he'll take another one of your children." Yeah.
Damn.
I know, Matilde is keeping it real.
Oh, shit.
These words seemed to carry weight with Annie Britt, and she slowly became herself again, to her family's delight. But that was the switch that, had to be flipped for her.
Yeah.
By 1924, Annie Britt had given birth to her final child, a boy named James Vance. So she finally had a son named James after her husband, and she had. So I think her second or third child was James Merritt Sharp Jr. He was called Man Boy by the family. He passed passed away. And then when she had the twins, she named one of them James, and then they passed away.
That almost seems like a curse. Please stop naming your kids James.
Yeah, but she did finally have a boy named James Vance, and he did live. He lived to adulthood, and he was, it was said that Annie Britt was warm and doting mother who worked like a Turk for her family. I was like, I don't know what that. Okay. Her husband and children were the center of her life, and her children grew up in a loving home as she taught them social graces and made sure they focused on their schoolwork. During James Sharp's years in Reidsville, he built a reputation as a tenacious trial lawyer who, as his last law partner, Norwood Robinson, said, never had a guilty client. Constantly active in the political and social life of his community, he served the North Carolina State Senate in 1925 and 1927, representing the 17th senatorial district. He was county attorney for the county of Rockingham and served as a number of successive terms as president of Reidsville's Chamber of Commerce and the Rockingham County Farm Bureau. So he was they just had deep roots in this area, this huge family. His unending energy and drive to excel would be passed on to his children, who would all be successful, one even surpassing one of his own unachieved goals. The Sharp parents raised their children to have integrity and to always do the right thing and to get an education. Both James and Annie Britt were determined to send each one of their 7 children to college so that they could get the education that their parents had fought tooth and nail to get. So they're like,
did their mom have an education?
I don't know because she was a teacher at the institute, but I don't know that she was able to go to college. I think it might have just been a thing that they were kind of given those jobs back then. So the Sharps children, let's get into this brood, because it helps to kind of have an idea of all of these children and how this family was very upstanding and successful, and they were pillars of the community. So the first one, Susie Marshall Sharp, she was the first child and secondary mother. Susie Marshall was a sibling all the rest looked up to when a decision needed to be made. Failing a basketball tryout in high school, she joined the debate club and really found her superpower. She was so good at debating that people started to tell her she should be a lawyer like her father. And she later said she heard it so many times that she just went with it.
Yeah.
She was like, I guess this is what I'm doing. So she graduated as class salutatorian. North Carolina College for Women. Then she went to the North Carolina College for Women, majoring in chemistry and law, and was the only woman in her class at the law school. In 1928, she became licensed to practice law and joined her father in the law firm of Sharp & Sharp, where she practiced for 20 years. In the 1930s, mainly she did research as female lawyers were rare and not easily accepted in the male-dominated profession. There's a story within one of the books that I read that a black man came to the law office and he's like, "Are you that lady lawyer?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am. What's up?" And he's like, "Nothing. I just wanted to look at you." I didn't believe it when they told me there was a lady lawyer.
Like a zoo exhibit.
So it was it was out of the norm. So in the state of North Carolina, women were not allowed to even serve on a jury until 1946, much less accepted as a trial lawyer in the courtroom. Appointed in 1939, she was the city attorney of Reidsville, North Carolina for 10 years. And then in 1962, she was elected to a role her father had coveted and lost. She was elected Superior Court judge.
Oh.
Yeah. Susie Marshall Sharp would go on to become the first female Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. So she was a baddie. Then the next child is Sally Blackwell Sharp Taylor, 5 years behind her older sister Susie. I think the first James Manboy was born in between them and then passed away. Manboy.
Awful nickname.
I just picture this little monkey. Stop calling him that. Sally was incredibly musical, often thought to be the prettiest of the Sharp girls, and she entered North Carolina College for Women in Greensboro in 1929 with her sights on being a professional violinist, but graduating as a music teacher. She was the first to marry of the Sharp children, marrying Arthur Taylor, a man 7 years her senior, but who had fallen in love with Sally when she worked this summer at Montgomery Ward in Reidsville, the store that Taylor managed. Sally did not initially return Taylor's love. but eventually fell for him as they wrote letters back and forth. And she, in the letters,
her down,
which isn't great, but but it is really funny. Like in the letters, you can see like the first couple of months, she always refers to him as Mr. Taylor. Like she never calls him by his first name. She's always like, sincerely, Sally, and stuff. And you can kind of see her warm up through these letters and everything. So they were writing letters back and forth during her senior year at college. Sally was required to teach for the state after graduation for 2 years in return for a reduced tuition she had received in college. During this time, Taylor was transferred to Michigan, and the two furiously wrote letters back and forth as they planned their wedding. Finally married in June of 1934, Sally moved to Michigan with her husband. A little side note, while researching this story, I found somehow Sally and Arthur letters back and forth during their courtship ended up being used in a 2010 thesis called A Thoroughly Modern Courtship, Preparing for Marriage in the 1930s. Sally and Arthur's letter showed them talking very frankly about their expectations for having children and laid out both of their obvious stances that people should be able to get to choose when they have children, and that they thought birth control gave people that right to choose when they brought children into this world, which is like hella liberal.
That's actually surprising. I would think it'd be more like, you get to stay in the kitchen and cook and have my 30 kids for me.
Yeah. So
the fact that they were talking about it and stuff, super progressive, super liberal.
Yeah, love to see it. The next child is Annie Hill Sharp Klenner, a spitting image of her mother. Annie Britt was a fire basketball player, and like her sister Susie, was top of her graduating class. Annie, again like her sister Susie, would go on to fulfill a dream of a parent, that of her mother, when she decided she wanted to be a nurse. Annie Hill attended Duke University at Durham and became only the second woman to earn a bachelor's degree from the college. While working on the wards, she met a tall, dark, and handsome medical student who was sick. Annie Hill fell head over heels for Frederick Klenner as she nursed him back to health.
Aww.
Mm-hmm. When Annie Hill finally told her family of her new beau, they were horrified to learn that their daughter had fallen for a Yankee. And even worse, a Catholic Yankee.
What?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
No, I thought, what were they? Are they Baptist or what?
That or Presbyterian. I feel like it will come up later, but I cannot remember for sure right now. So yeah, not Catholic. For sure not Catholic. Yeah.
Protestants hate Catholics.
Oh, God. Which is, yeah. Anyways. But the horror of the family reached new levels when they had learned that Annie Hill had secretly converted to Catholicism and would not listen to any amount of reasoning from her parents or elder sister when they tried to talk her out of marrying the stranger from the north. Annie Hill married Frederick Klenner, and the couple settled into Winston-Salem as Klenner finished his schooling and Annie Hill worked as a nurse. A Catholic. This is so weird to me. It's so weird. The next child, Thomas Adolphus Sharp, he was often considered the most brilliant of the Sharp children, which is kind of crazy because the girls were already smashing it.
Yeah.
Tom graduated with a degree in chemical engineering from North Carolina and moved to New Jersey, where he became an engineer for DuPont. He would later marry into a New York social register family and then went on to work in defense research.
That's okay. He married a Yank too, but that was okay.
That was she must not have been a Catholic.
She wasn't a Catholic.
Yeah,
Yank. Okay.
she was a social register. That was fine. Not some guy from Pennsylvania, backwoods Pennsylvania. They didn't like that. Louise Wortham Sharp, or Pokey, to her family, went to women's college like her elder sisters. They had great nicknames in this. She also graduated top of her class with a teaching degree. After working as a teacher for a while, she went back to school later for nursing and then enlisted in the Navy, where she served until she retired to take care of her ailing mother, Annie Britt. And when her parents had both passed away, Louise took up residency in the big house where all the Sharp children were raised and kind of was like the keeper of the family stuff. Yeah. Florence Abigail Sharp Newsom. She was bright, but some harsher critics would say she was the least smart of the Sharp siblings.
She was the colitis.
Yes, she had.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It said in the book by Bitter Blood by Jerry Bledsoe, in a family of geniuses, I don't know, I can't say that, someone had to come in last, and it was Florence. She was like happy, easygoing, and the fun one of the bunch. She was popular in high school and joined her older sister Louise at women's college, graduating and going on to become a school teacher.
So it's not like she was dumb. She just wasn't as smart as them.
Yeah, like the first woman judge. You know, she was great and everything, but people were like, oh, well. And she was dealt a hard deal. So it's not her fault. Finally, there's James Vance Sharp, called Kits, was the baby. Annie Britt really wanted to have a child named after her husband, and she had one named James Merritt Sharp Jr., I think, and they called him Man Boy, and he passed away. Another great nickname. And then the twins, one of them was James, and he passed away. So by the time she had another baby, she was like, I will have one that's named for his father. This one lived. It stuck. Her mother-in-law was, though, like, she was like, quit naming them kids James. She was like, you are not meant.
Can we call him Jimmy?
Yeah.
And it's close enough, but it's not James, and maybe they have a chance.
But this one stuck. And he enjoyed musical studies on the clarinet and piano. He learned, he played baseball and football, and he earned a BCA rank in the Eagle Scout. He went on to college, became a surgeon, joined the Navy, and upon retiring from the Navy, he continued his surgical practice as the chief of surgery for the VA hospitals in Lake City. So
very musically inclined,
yes,
and very athletic, and just very brainy. And, except for Florence, the dumb one.
It's just wild because, like, when you hear everything Florence does to her life, you're like,
yeah,
okay. With everything each of the children did in the path that they took from the Sharp family, first stemming from the service of the father, James Merritt Sharp, to his community, and then the successes of all the children in a town watched grow up, the Sharp family became very prominent in this area. And they had very deep roots in Reidsville, so they were well known. This family seemed without fault, blessed and to have it all. But as with any good Southern family, tensions were brewing behind the scenes, and the Sharps were no exception.
The skeletons are about to come out of the closet.
Love it. In 1939, the Sharp family and the law firm were emerging from the Great Depression rather unscathed after the tumultuous time period. James Sharp would accept chickens for payment for law services and stuff. They made it through. It's food.
Was scarce, so that's actually better than money, if
absolutely,
you ask me.
Yeah. So there was only one thing that seemed to trouble the Sharp family: Annie Hill's marriage to that friggin' Yankee Catholic.
to the Catholic. I don't think they have a problem with him being a Yankee. It's just a Catholic thing.
Yeah. Initially shocked and hurt by Annie's decision to marry and convert to Catholicism against the family's wishes, the Sharps realized that no matter what they thought about her decision, she had made the decision all the same, and they set to work on reconciling with Annie.
Going to try supporting her and everything. That's
which
good.
is great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And welcoming their new hulking, strange son-in-law. In 1939, Frederick Klenner decided to open a practice in Reidsville after a lot of prodding from Annie Hill because it was her hometown. As Fred worked to get established, Annie Hill took a job at Duke Hospital to pay their bills as her husband got up and going. The Sharps invited Klenner to live with them during this period, hoping they'd come to love him.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
They'll see what she sees in him.
The living arrangement did not produce.
They won't see what she sees in him.
Gave it the old college try, though. Towards their son-in-law. However, it only worried the Sharps more. Klenner suffered from debilitating migraines that made him act, according to Annie Britt, crazier than a moon-eyed horse. Which I don't know what that is.
I was going to say, what does that mean? I don't know. Okay.
I ain't got no idea, but apparently it's not good. When not plagued with mysterious ailments, his general behavior was stranger than the Sharps could have ever imagined. And they were relieved when Klenner's practice popped off much quicker than anyone had anticipated, and he and Annie Hill were able to get a place of their own.
They were like, get this freak out of here.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Beginning in the 1940s, Dr. Klenner began experimenting with mega doses of vitamins, mostly vitamin C and vitamin B, to treat...
Vitamin C just gives you diarrhea.
If
you take too much of it, you just get diarrhea.
They're just shitting out their health issues, apparently. Everyone looks anorexic in Reidsville because they just have diarrhea all the time. To treat a variety of medical disorders. Actually, anything you'd come in with. He's like, let's slap some vitamin C on there. I bet it'll work. From infants to the elderly, Klenner used large doses of vitamins to treat a wide range of medical disorders, including polio and multiple sclerosis. And
I don't think vitamin C works for those ones.
Dr. Klenner would go on to be known internationally for his vitamin treatments, both through praise and through controversy over his seemingly eccentric treatments and views. It was either one or the other. Someone said in one of my research, he didn't have like patients, he had acolytes. Like people worship this man. Or on the flip side, other people were like, okay.
He's a quack.
He's fucking weird. On May 23rd, 1946, Dr. Klenner made national headlines when he delivered the world's first set of surviving identical black quadruplets, the Fultz sisters, at Annie Penn Hospital in Reidsville. In his opinion, Klenner attributed the survival of the premature babies to massive doses of vitamins that he had administered to the babies while under his medical care. It's unknown if the quadruplets' parents knew about the experiments or consented to them that Klenner was performing on their children. And experimenting on infants is what he was doing. African American infants, which is of note. Because at this time, I will let you know that Dr. Frederick Klenner was a raging, outright racist.
No.
It's great, yeah. During World War II...
But he was a Yankee.
Apparently, he was Southern at heart for some things. So, sorry, that's not like a... Sorry, I didn't mean that.
I did look at moon-eyed horse, by the way.
Did you?
And it's like a disease that horses get that make them blind.
Oh! Look at you! I was like, I have no idea what that means, but I wanted to say it to someone sometime. So during World War II, he had openly been like a Nazi sympathizer and defender of Adolf Hitler.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. His office often contained white supremacist and conservative materials, such as pamphlets of the John Birch Society and the White Citizens Council. Like up until his death in the 80s, which I think he practiced all the way up until he died, his waiting room had colored waiting room, whites only waiting room.
It's actually really surprising then that he would even take on African American patients being that racist and everything.
Yeah. So,
or is it just because he wanted to experiment?
I think
is that
I don't know overall. I think overall he's like, well, their money is still green. But I think with the quadruplets, I think it was like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna test some stuff on these kids. And I don't care what happens. Yeah. So let's review. The mother of the girls, Annie Mae, was a deaf mute after a bout of meningitis as a child. And she now, because of that, struggled to communicate in any form. And the father, Annie Mae's husband, was a poor sharecropper. They are black. They have the first ever recorded identical African-American quadruplets on record who were born prematurely and whisked away by a wacky white doctor, a known racist, and he experiments on them. It's all not great.
It's also crazy to me that having all these pamphlets and the segregated waiting room stuff that people like, that African American people were like, let's take her kids to this doctor.
Or even going on like throughout the years and stuff, into the 80s that black people were even going to see him.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, vibes are off. Yeah,
totally off.
Maybe
they didn't have the pamphlets though.
Maybe
that was just for the white only waiting room was the racist.
It's also
pamphlets
bad.
And propaganda.
Yeah,
okay.
It's so bad. So it's just like it's racism. It's very bad. The whole thing is bad. So if you're feeling bad earlier about how outraged the Sharps were about their daughter marrying the Klenner, you can stop feeling bad for him now.
I think it's still funny that they were outraged because he's Catholic. Not that he's a racist. He's Catholic.
I don't know if they knew about the racism, but I hope that didn't it made it worse for them. They weren't like, that's not a big deal. I don't know. So, one final weird snippet on the quadruplet saga. The mother of the 8 girls, Annie Mae, considered several sets of names. She was excited to name her babies, as most mothers are. One was Betty, Clara, Billy, and Anne, Lorinda, Belinda, Lucinda, and Magenta. I don't like that one. And Rosetta, Loretta, Margaretta, and Henrietta, which is my vote.
I like that one because of Henrietta.
I love Henrietta. But true to form, Fred Klenner took it upon himself to name the girls.
What?
Sidestepping their mother's wishes. Klenner, he's like, well, I'm not going to go with what you wanted. Any variety of what you wanted.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he sucks. Klenner chose the name Mary to honor the mother of Jesus, followed by the names of his own sisters, in naming the sisters Mary Louise, Mary Ann, Mary Alice, and Mary Catherine.
They're all Mary then. Okay, that one was Mary then. So all of them are Mary.
All of them are Mary. And then the second name is one of his sisters' names. Like, oh my God. Throughout the lives, the sisters were called by their second names, but oh my God.
So it must have been a free thing. That's all I can think of. Because first of all, here we have this lady that she can't really speak. You know, she's still that she's mute and all that. And she takes her kids to a known racist doctor. But then not only that, he names them. It must just be because she was so poor that she couldn't afford another doctor.
There was that. There, like I said before, there's a Wikipedia on these girls because like they got almost like brand deals or something. Like their healthcare was free through the racist wacko, Dr. Klenner.
They wanted to experiment on them.
Yeah, who was basically, And then they had, I think they were given like a new home and a 10-year supply of some sort of food by some food brand or something like that. So it was like a publicity stunt. It was so weird. The whole thing is weird.
Crazy.
So yeah. And anyone who wants to come at me and defend this fucking racist by saying, well, they did all survive and it could have been from Klenner's vitamin C. All 4 women would go on to have breast cancer, which 3 of them died from the breast cancer. The 4th one died just from a different kind of cancer. And before she passed away, she stated that she felt they all had cancer from the vitamin shots that were administered to the sisters as children. Because it wasn't just when they were babies. It was, I think, up until they were 12 or so.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I wonder what else was in. I don't think they were just vitamins.
Probably not.
Other stuff and everything.
Well, for them, you know.
There's probably vitamins and lead.
And then he didn't get to live long enough to see what he was giving them with the, you know, he didn't see the results of his, I hate him. And that's why I hate Dr. Fred Klenner. End of episode. Just kidding. But I did feel it's important to go into the background of what kind of person this fuck is. So anyways, Annie Hill and Fred would go on to have 3 children of their own, 2 girls and a son. Dr. Klenner was overjoyed with the birth of his son and showed his excitement by naming the boy after himself. But the family called him Fritz. So one thing
like that.
I'm like, okay. One thing about the Klenner household, Klenner is from Germany, and a lot of people said that he adhered, and therefore his family adhered to the German or Prussian way of things. That meant that Dr. Klenner, the father, ruled all. His word was law, and the family obeyed.
Gross.
Yeah. His kids all called him Papa. The strict environment, along with Dr. Klenner's almost obsession with his son, one newspaper article claimed that Dr. Klenner almost seemed jealous of his son's attentions and discouraged Fritz from making friends. It created a perfect storm around Fritz as he grew, and the consequences would one day become deadly.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the Klenner home was a big brick house on the upper class neighborhood of Reedsville, and it seemed like Dr. Klenner made it his life's goal to fill that house until it was bursting at the seams. Dark rooms were piled with books and papers so thick that a walking was limited to trails throughout the house.
Oh, he's a hoarder.
He's a big hoarder, yeah.
Okay.
He collected old clocks, cut glass, coins, and objects that would become an obsession of his son one day. Guns. From the time Fritz was a toddler, Klenner and the boy were best friends. As I said, Klenner seemed almost jealous of anything or anyone who may have gotten the attention of his son, and he worked hard to alienate Fritz from kids his own age and his wife's family. So if there were Sharp family gatherings, Annie Hill was only allowed to bring her daughters. Fritz was like sequestered at home, and Fritz grew up to be very close with his father's side of the family, but he was very removed from the Sharp family. So,
and she was fine with that, huh? Just like,
I think she was like trying not to get her ass beat by her weird husband. So there were some claims that there was some physical violence in the Klenner home when people would disobey him. So, yeah. Keeping up with his weirdness, Fred would never allow their son, Fritz, to visit the Sharp family when she would go for these family gatherings. It said that the whispered thoughts of the Sharp family about Annie Hill's weird-ass husband, never meant for his ears, did make their way back to Dr. Klenner, and he would store up these mean remarks, biding his time to exact revenge on his wife's hoity-toity family. He finally got his chance when it came time to deliver his sister-in-law's first baby. Florence gave birth to Susie, and Dr. Klenner performed an episiotomy on Florence without anesthetic, causing Florence horrible pain that was absolutely unnecessary. Oh, it's bad. He just
puckered.
It's horrible, and it just keeps getting worse.
Oh, and Florence was probably the one that was nice to him. She was the nice one.
She was so nice, and actually, in my research, throughout her life, because I don't think she realized what had been done to her, because he kind of spun some yarn to her husband Bob and her, like, oh, it was necessary, I didn't have time to give you like an anesthetic, like, and they trusted him.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so and throughout her life, if somebody was sick, they'd be like, my brother-in-law, Florence was like his biggest cheerleader, and she would always recommend people to go see him, and then he does this shit to her. So
what a douchebag.
He is a douchebag. Dr. Klenner's revenge.
I hope he dies in all this. Like, does someone shoot him? Does Fritz shoot him?
No, I wish. Yeah. The family members did learn about Dr. Klenner's revenge years later when he bragged about doing that on purpose to Florence. So he sucks. In the late 40s, Dr. Klenner bought 240 acres of land and dubbed it the Mountain. Whenever Dr. Klenner wasn't working, he could be found at the mountain with Fritz in tow. Spending all his time with his father, Fritz began to parrot and mimic his father. All the things his father liked, Fritz liked. And so...
It's no big surprise.
Because Dr. Klenner was a racist, Nazi sympathizer, gun fanatic, and devout Catholic, who... He tinged his like rigid religious beliefs with like a touch of mysticism, and he ranted all the time about the coming end times and the ultimate battle between good and evil. Because this is like what Fritz was immersed in all the time. Fritz was all of these things. He believed all of this. He subscribed to all of this. But Fritz would take all of these beliefs and actions and act on them someday. Felt weird by his peers. As he went through school. So weird. Possibly because of his obsession with Hitler, guns, and wearing fatigues to school. Dr. Klenner, yes. What are those? Dr. Klenner did not have to vie for his son's attention, and Fritz spent most of his free time in his father's doctor's office. Fritz knew that his father's plan for him was that he would become a doctor. It wasn't even discussed. Fritz knew that was what was expected of him. So he's not growing up like great. Like there's this huge weight of, no one's even asked him what he wants to do with his life. He's got this strict home life.
It sounds like he wants to fucking torture animals.
Yeah. In 1969, Reedsville High, as Fritz started his senior year, integrated. His racist father would not have his son attend that school and pulled him out, sending Fritz to a boarding school outside of Atlanta.
See, it's still so weird to me that he was willing to work on,
Yes, that it was even an option.
He'd be like, no, I'm a black or a white doctor only and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That just makes my screen crawl even more, because then it looked like he was treating them. He was... treating them.
So scary. It's awful. Formerly a military school that now claimed to focus more on Christian teachings, Fritz thrived in the rigid setting, participating in rifle team, rifle club, pep club, and band. He took first place on a science fair, and he graduated near the top of his class. His father radiated with pride for his son, especially when Fritz was accepted into the University of Mississippi, where his sisters had gone. But Ole Miss, away from his father and without the rigidity of boarding school, the cracks in Fritz's personality started to show. First came the claims.
Weird.
Yeah, that's shocking. First came the claims that he carried a pistol on campus and worked as an undercover narcotics agent. Then it was the secret military training he was receiving in Georgia. Then it was the single-handedly fighting off a gang of black men who had attacked him. It seemed Fritz was living almost entirely in a fantasy world.
Yeah. I love that for him.
Yeah, good for you, I guess. Which became evident to everyone when, after 4 years, Fritz still hadn't received a degree. With only 3 hours of a language credit left to complete in order to receive his degree, Fritz decided not to complete it and instead went home for Christmas with tales of his Christmas time graduation and a degree in the mail. When the degree did not arrive by the following May, Dr. Klenner rang up the school and gave them an earful about his son not receiving his diploma, only to learn from a dean that Dr. Klenner learned that the school did not have a December commencement, as Fritz had claimed, and he was still 3 hours shy of the required credits needed to earn a degree.
What was he going for a degree for? Because he plans on being a doctor.
It's biology, but I can't remember specifically. But I want to say it was, yeah.
So he can't even get his 4-year degree, but then he plans on being a doctor, which. What is like another 8 more years of school or some shit like that? Yeah. Okay.
Fail proof. I don't see, how it went so wrong. So when Dr. Klenner confronted his son, Fritz went into a tirade about the enemies in the language department having plotted against him to not get his degree. You know how the language department is always infiltrated by enemies.
Scaly enemies just everywhere.
Enemies everywhere. Fritz assured his father he'd straighten it out. Fritz never did.
Fucking commies.
It's probably what he was saying. He really hated commies. That was a big thing for them. Yeah. A fantasy world built by Fritz can now, be seen pretty clearly when one looks back. Even after not getting his degree from Ole Miss, he announced to everyone in 1976 that he had been accepted at Duke Medical School, where his own father had gone. Dr. Klenner radiated pride once more for his namesake and set Fritz up an apartment in Durham, completely paid for, and each Monday Fritz...
So his dad's just buying this. His dad must be a fucking idiot.
All the racism will eat at your brain, I think.
Well,
I mean, what do you fucking expect? He didn't call back to be like, so did he get his degree? Because, I haven't seen it. So I don't know if he produced fake paperwork or what. But, yeah. His dad's like, here's your new apartment. Here's your new BMW.
What?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Fritz would drive off to school in the new BMW his father had got him, returning each Friday with tales of his studies.
What was he doing?
I have playing fantasy. I don't know what he was doing. During this time.
Go to the arcade.
Yeah. He's in there like, I'm on every leaderboard in here. Fritz became engaged during this time to a real woman. That is important for me to know. They set a date for the wedding. Like, she was just smitten kitten with him. She loved him. And then Fritz, for some reason, right before, called it off because he was dying of stomach cancer. He wasn't. I don't know what his deal was. Not long after, miraculously cured by one of his father's wacko vitamin combos.
I was going to say, did he take vitamin C?
Oh, yeah. A lot of it. Fritz put all of his energy into making people believe he was really attending medical school and carrying on affairs with multiple women. So he's like, you know what I am going to do? I'm just going to pretend I'm a doctor. I'm going to get some women on the side here.
So he, lives in this, weird fantasy world.
Fantasy world.
Womanizer.
Yeah. All around good guy. Which is crazy because his dad was so great. I don't know how he turned out so bad. For his life at school, he often was seen wearing a doctor's white coat with the Duke emblem on it and toting around a doctor's bag filled to the brim with medicine, syringes, and medical tools. And he wasn't afraid to use them on people. That's something I need to mention. He'd be like, do you not feel well? Let me get out this syringe. Don't. What?
They just give anybody that shit back then, huh?
With the women, often women Fritz sensed were vulnerable. He would spin long-winded tales of his secret role in the CIA and how he hadn't been around because he had to jet off for a secret mission in Chad or Libya or...
Where's his mom in all this? She just gave up.
I think she did. Yeah, I really think she was just
I got my 2 daughters.
Yeah,
I'm gonna concentrate on them.
Gonna just
okay.
Yep. I think it was like a coping mechanism. She was just like, I'll believe what this kid says because the alternate is just too crazy. Yeah. Fritz would often watch the women from afar. And then when he like actually went to see them, he would tell them he knew what they had been up to because someone from the CIA was watching them to make sure that they were safe. Like these women.
So he was stalking them.
Yes. Yep. A peeping Tom situation. Yeah. Okay. He would, women would say later on, they were like, he knew things about my life that were and the only way that he knew that is because he was watching from outside. Like the CIA wasn't watching you. Or he'd walk into their homes with what he said was a bomb that he had just found hidden under the woman's car. So thank God I'm here. Like, or your car would have blown up, probably with you in it, like.
I'm keeping you safe.
Yes. So Fritz would keep these women scared, making them believe that he was their only means to safety, trapping them in his fantasy world along with him. One of these women, if you do read the Bitter Blood book,
she kept very alliterative.
It is. She kept a diary, and so there's like these diary entries of like how they would see each other and like the shit he would talk about, and I'm like, oh, girl. Oh, girl, you need to, yeah.
And she was just like completely just like
she's like, I don't even know if he's alive. I saw on the news there were bombings here and he could be there. And he's like off playing commando at the farm or mountain or whatever.
He's at the mountain.
Yeah, he's like, so of the Sharp children, Annie Hill had the weirdest kid. But that's what you get when you married a weird fucker like Dr. Klenner. Like, I don't know what you expected, girlfriend. So before we end, we're just going to switch gears a bit and learn about another Sharp sibling, Florence. The little angel baby. As I mentioned earlier, some people who did not know the Sharp family well would sometimes think Florence that was the dumb one, but that is just far from the truth. And Florence just dealt with some tough breaks. For one, after the bout with colitis, she had to relearn to walk and talk. After she survived something her siblings would say caused her to be double spoiled. She had been the baby girl in the family, spoiled. And then again, after the death of the twin brothers and her survival, spoiled. So
I would have spoiled her.
I would have totally spoiled it. Yeah, hell yeah, girl. But having to relearn to talk and walk at 4 right before she started school would put anyone behind. And when her mother realized she was still struggling after being in school for a couple of years, she had Florence held back a year, and that seemed to do the trick. Florence never again struggled in school. But she also was never like ultra invested in school like her siblings.
It was like a social place for her.
Mm-hmm, yeah. As Florence grew, it was obvious she enjoyed school for its social aspects. Girl, same. I was like, oh, I'm going to my meet and greets today. And it was obvious to anyone who would meet her that Florence was the bright light of the Sharp children. With her outgoing nature, her ability to make friends easily, and her love of life. She was just a bright light. As Jerry Bledsoe states in his book, laughter and joy followed Florence wherever she went. So sweet. Florence followed her sisters to a women's college to study teaching, and after graduation, she took a job at Kings Mountain and then in Walkertown, which is near Winston-Salem, at Haynes High School, where she became fast friends with the music teacher, Flavella Stockton. I fucking love that name.
Flavella. I like that.
I know. It's they're great names. When Florence was in women's college, she was classmates with another girl named Frances Newsom, who had grown up in Winston-Salem area and attended Haynes High School along with her brother, Bob Newsom. Both Frances and Bob, raised in Winston-Salem by their mother, Hattie, and their father, Bob Sr., were taught a love of music from an early age by their mother. While Frances excelled at instruments, Bob did not. He thrived as a singer. Bob was abysmal, I guess, at instruments. So his singing abilities were nurtured at home by his proud mother and in high school by his music teacher, Flavella Stockton. Bob Newsom had originally started his college career studying music, but when his father, a practical man who had been a lifelong tobacco auctioneer, voiced his concerns on how his son would make a living being a singer, Bob switched to engineering.
What the fuck is tobacco auctioneering?
Apparently it is a big thing down there. People would bring their tobacco in, and it'd be like going to sell your cows or something. And so Yeah, he made a killing off of it. The Newsomes were very well off, so it must have been a good job. So, yeah. I mean, you guys know how I talk on this thing. Could you imagine me being an auctioneer? It must be an art. There must be only some people who can.
No, I actually put an auctioneer on closed captioning one time, and most of it's just like mumble jumble. Yeah.
Well, they make it look really good.
They make it sound good too. That's for sure. So I was like, what are they actually saying?
Yeah.
It literally just says like incoherent.
That is so funny.
Like, and then they'd be like 40 incoherent.
Petty you are. You're like, closed captioning.
What
just
are
as
they
I thought.
Saying?
They ain't saying shit.
I knew they were saying real words.
Bullshit. So while home visiting once in 1944,
I wasn't being petty. I wanted to be an auctioneer.
I was doing research.
I was trying to learn the trade, okay?
Gotta have an ace up your sleeve. So, home visiting once in 1944, Bob went to his old high school to say hello to his favorite teacher, Flavella Stockton. Flavella says, I have somebody I want you to meet. And this is Florence Sharp.
Aww.
Yeah. Bob's immediately smitten kitten with Florence.
So Bob and Flo.
Bob and Florence. Who was beautiful with long hair, dark eyes, and a winning smile. Bob immediately asked her out and had such a good time on their first date that she asked her for a second date before the first one was even over. He proposed on the second date.
And, oh, wow.
Yeah.
They went fast.
Yes. And to her friends and family shock, Florence accepted. She was like, hell yeah, let's do this. So they married in Reedsville in August of 1945 and settled in Winston-Salem. And Bob was hired at R.J. Reynolds, the tobacco firm that his father had worked at his whole life.
Is he an auctioneer too?
He's not. He's an engineer for them.
Okay.
But they didn't even have like an engineering department. I guess when he was like, hi, I need a job, they were like, we don't have engineers. And he's like, let me show you that you need one. And so they were like, all right, we're going to hire you. And then within 4 years, Bob made chief of industrial engineer for the world's largest tobacco company at just age 30. So he was like, no. You do need one. Let me show you. And so, yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah, good for him. So Bob and Florence are doing great. Christmas Eve of 1946, Bob and Florence welcomed their first child, a daughter named Susie Sharp, after Florence's older sister, and delivered by her weird brother-in-law, Dr. Klenner.
Ew, this is
the episiotomy. Joy over their new daughter, turned to worry when she was diagnosed with a heart murmur. In his infinite wisdom, Dr. Klenner warned the new parents not to let the baby cry, as it may cause her heart to stop. Don't know where I just think he's pulling shit out of his ass, to be honest.
That has got to be nerve-wracking on new parents.
Can you imagine?
To not let your baby cry because she might die?
Yeah.
What a dick.
Oh, and who knows? Maybe that was another revenge thing. He was like, I'm going to fuck with these guys.
Yes.
Guess who I'm sleeping? Yeah. And just told them whatever, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised, I guess. So perhaps this start in the world is what made Bob spoil Susie so much. Tempered only a little bit by when her baby brother showed up, Robert Newsom III was born. But whatever the reason, Bob worshipped his daughter, who was by now called Susie Q, to distinguish her from her famous aunt. And little Susie Q, started calling her Aunt Susu. And so did everyone in this family, is calling this like very prestigious woman.
She's the judge, right?
Yeah, the Supreme Court justice, and everyone's calling her Aunt Susu. Yeah. So Susie's relationship with her mother was much more frosty, as Florence was not so easily manipulated as Bob was.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
You would think that she would just be
whatever you want.
Yeah.
After that, start in the world and everything.
Being the first kid, being her daughter, and then the whole heart murmur thing. And
I guess not. I guess.
You would just think she'd be like, what do you need? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
Like, just wait on her hand and foot.
Mm-hmm. So. Susie became known for her tantrums as a child, and when locking Susie in her room didn't quell Susie's storms, Florence took to sticking Susie under cold showers. Something Susie would hold against her mother for her whole, life.
Child abuse.
It's not great. Mostly darling and beautiful child, Susie was described by family members as strong-willed and with a mean streak, one she often reserved for her little brother Robbie. As he grew, it became obvious that no matter how much attention Susie gave to her studies, Rob had natural intellect that soared above hers, and she resented him for it, eventually giving him the nickname 3. because he's the third. And saying it with a I know. She's witty. I know. And saying it with distasteful tone. She'd be like, 3's here. Cunty. That's amazing. Ooh. Florence and Bob raises our children to have social graces, and they were brought up in a genteel Southern atmosphere, and Susie's attitude for the rest of her life would reflect on this upbringing. As a teenager, Susie became obsessed with the British royal family, which isn't a problem. So the cool people are. But she would go further and dress up in gowns on the Queen's birthday, looking down at anyone. She'd look it down on anyone who'd be like, what are you wearing? Resulting in people around her thinking she thought herself a princess and was very hoity-toity, which is kind of true. That's not wrong.
She is a princess.
She's a princess.
A princess.
Yeah.
Ever watch The Little Princess?
I too am a princess. As Susie became a young adult, she was described as shy but assured in herself, and she set goals that she always achieved. So she was very driven. Her tantrums receded, but her relationship with her mother remained a bit removed. One friend said that Florence regarded Susie with a cautious respectfulness, always hesitant to ever be too critical of her daughter in fear of Susie's reactions. Susie never seemed concerned with boys as many of her classmates were in high school, and by the time she graduated, she never had a serious boyfriend or even had casually dated. She was very naive about boys and sex, her cousin Nancy later said. Florence wouldn't even let her shave her legs or wear makeup until she was past 16 or something, so she just wasn't doing the same things. She was almost growing up the way Florence grew up versus other girls her age, so she was just... things were different for her. Susie graduated from high school in 1964 and attended, to no one's surprise, Queen's College for her freshman year. Her first year complete, Susie felt she needed to attend a college that was more focused on academics than a good time, as apparently it was a whole bunch of debutantes, which when you learn everything about Susie, you would think she was a debutante. She actually frowned upon that. She did not want to participate because she was a sharp. She would have been like, there's all these systems with debutantes that I don't totally understand, but she could have actually been a debutante and went through that whole process and everything. And when it was brought up to her that she was a shoo-in for that, she was turned up her nose and was actually kind of disgusted with the idea.
So she wanted to be a princess, but she was like an intelligent princess. Yes. And she wanted an education, and that was more important to her.
Yes, so she didn't go through the whole debutante things. And then when she was at school with all these girls that were just there for a good time, they were going because their parents told them to, she was like, I'm out. And she enrolled in Wake Forest her sophomore year. By the time she started classes that fall, Susie had yet to ever date anyone seriously or even have like a reckless love affair. She was just completely inexperienced.
She lesbian?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I was wondering if maybe that was the reason. Like maybe she was just attracted to women, but it was also the time and place where you weren't allowed to be.
I don't think so. I never saw anything that made me feel that way about her. So that's what made it all the more surprising when Susie brought home a quiet, sandy-haired, pre-med student to meet her family.
Okay.
Yeah. A boy she was determined to marry, as it became clear to everyone after just the first couple visits. That boy was Tom T.J. Lynch, the son of Dolores and Chuck Lynch. And that is where we are stopping for part 2.
No!
Thank you so much for watching. Tell your weird friends. Tell your not weird friends. Tell everyone.
I have theories going on.
Okay.
I got theories in my head.
We will see you soon. And maybe this is going to be 4 parts. I thought it was going to be 3, but to do it justice, we need to do 4 parts. Maybe I'll be nice and release 2 at once. We'll see.
We have to. Because I need to know.
Might start to riot.
I need to know.
Yep. So, anyways, we'll see you for part 3 soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.